My name is Sean Snider, and I'm a parent of 2 children at Butterfield Ranch. During closed session, I read this letter, but I just wanted to reread it to really reinforce my support and my wife's support for Dr. Ochoa, Miss Marchbanks, and Mrs. Chavez at Butterfield Ranch Elementary, because they're exceptional teachers. We've personally witnessed their commitment to excellence in the classroom on numerous occasions, and I just really wanted to take another moment to reiterate that our daughter is in the Mrs. Marchbanks' class right now and consistently comes home every day with new enthusiasm for reading and learning. Mrs. Marchbanks is an amazing, loving teacher, and she's involved in our PBIS program, and she's in charge of the spelling bee also at our school, teaching our children, how to spell and how to be proud of their academic success. My daughter is I guess all I can say about Miss Marchbanks is I am indebted to her for her dedication to my daughter's education, and she's an incredible teacher. Now, Dr. Ochoa, from day one, he stepped up to working with Butterfield Ranch and took over when we had lost a parent volunteer for our 100-mile club, teaching our students how to be active. He leads by example, I'd say, if I were to say anything. He's a leader. And he's involved in our green team at the school, which is a recycling program that helps teach our children about sustainability and respect for our environment. He's an approachable, relatable, and the kids love and respect him. And he's also our school's only male teacher. And studies show that for young boys to see a male role model in the front of the classroom, it can positively influence their development. And we've seen this firsthand, personally, with my own son. I really have. Now on to Mrs. Chavez, pardon me. She's not only a teacher at our school, but on the PBIS committee as well. And she's also a Butterfield Ranch Elementary School mom. Before she became a BRE teacher, she was a BRE PTA mom and heavily involved in our school and its success. She's a vested interest in seeing the school succeed, not only from being a parent, but also a teacher. And she's devoted really to teaching our students how to be, committed to their education, but also to their peers and the learning environment. So ultimately what I wanted to say again, if I had just a moment, is that these teachers at Butterfield Ranch, they really embody a lot of things, but most importantly, they embody the core mission, vision, and values, I believe, of the district here at Chino Valley Unified School District. And I would just hope that you hear my words again. I wanted to just share and reiterate. So thank you for your time.
Kevin Butscher, followed by Roy Schafhuizen, followed by Amy Smet.
Hello, board. I really am just encouraged with our school at Butterfield Ranch with the new principal. She's doing amazing work, and we're really healing from all of the tragedy that happened before this, and it was going so well. And then I'm so disappointed in Infield and Mr. Rideout decision to punish 3 amazing teachers. I'm praying that the board members will make a good decision to save those teachers. What reason do you justify to taking out 3 amazing teachers? Your job as a school board is to be the leadership and the check and balance with the superintendent to make sure when he makes a bad call that you call him on that and look at the actual facts. These teachers live in America and have rights. They have the rights to freedom of speech just like every American should have. They should not be punished for talking. But these 3 teachers were not speaking out. I have no idea why, and those teachers have no idea why. We need to have everybody understand that when students are in need and distress, we need to help them, because it doesn't just help that student, it helps the teachers, it helps the school, it helps all the other students that are in that room. So ultimately, we want a safe learning environment for everybody. We have a giant victim list at our school. We have Mr. Bennett, who wasn't supported or counseled, and ultimately, over a year, apparent things were not going correctly and needed help. Miss BC did not get supported. There was no aide in the room until 2 weeks before the incident happened. There was no behavioral support. There was no training. She was in urgent care without supports. The 2 teachers, Miss Curry and Handis, that were in teacher jail, I'm assuming for speaking up. I don't know why. the students not getting the aid sooner and not getting all the helps they need. I really want us to move on to the positive message, but I really want you to hear the first. Positive message is thanks for the superintendent for spending an hour and a half the other day and 35 minutes this morning talking with me about what things we can do to improve this. Unfortunately, this bad news really hit us hard and kind of is hard for me to give this positive message at this point. But I'm happy to learn about his Brief Academy that really pulls kids out and for 10 weeks really works on what's going on with that kid. That's an amazing program, but we need to get that furthered. We need more kids in the program. We need to improve the process to help these wonderful kids. They're crying out for attention and help. They're not crying out and throwing things because they're bad kids. They're throwing things because they need attention and help. These kids need help. We help the kids, we help the teachers, we help the school. This is very clearly a situation where that kid was not being supported. The teacher was not being supported. We didn't want Bennett to actually leave. We wanted Bennett to be able to be counseled and work with. We weren't trying to take anybody out. We got called an angry mob, but we weren't an angry mob. We were out there very cordially laughing and having a wonderful time discussing things that can improve this school. Get the parents back. Thank you.
Roy Schafhuizen, followed by Amy Desmet, followed by Deborah Woolery.
Good evening, guys. I just want to really thank you for the opportunity to come before you and be a voice for our children. It's not my voice that I want you to hear. It's not my name that I want you to know. And it's not any particular teacher that I want to speak for, because I'm sure that, as you all know, you've gone through things to get in the position that you've been. And every day I tell my children, go and do your best, son. And I got two kids that I love dearly, just as each of these parents do, as each of your parents did. And I just want you, if you can, to that basic premise that we all learned, put yourself in the other person's shoes. When you're thinking of this, don't think from the position that you've already had. And I don't want to come accusing anybody, because I don't know all the facts. What I do know is I have two children I love. I want to have the opportunities that I've been afforded. This is a great country. I love our community, and that's what we're fighting for. We're not fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for the community, so the next generation can have the community. We love where we live, and we want it to remain. It's important that we have the energy and the vibe of being together. It shouldn't be, parents against, any particular board member or anything of that nature. All I care about is that the voices that are heard with the intent to be heard and listened to. No predispositions, no meaning I want to accomplish this. All we want to accomplish is what's fair, what's just, what is right. I named my son Justice because I want to have a just kid. I took it from the Bible because I didn't want to think of the name. I let God do it. I try to tell him every day, do your best. I don't want to tell him, do your best, son. I lost both teachers. I have a 3rd grader and a 5th grader, Miss Hernandez and Miss Curry. I've kept their minds right. I've kept them out of all the things. My son came to me one day and he told me, Daddy, somebody told me that Mr. Bennett just wants to replace the teachers with young teachers. I didn't have anything against the man. I didn't agree with everything, but I knew that was false. And I was upset at my fellow community for letting one of the children say that, because that's all of our responsibilities. What I care about is giving them a chance to have a fair evaluation of adults. I don't want them to look at adults and say, hey, my teacher left and she wasn't willing to fight because she didn't get to say bye. They're all wondering what's going on, just as we all are. Nobody knows what happened. That's the hardest part. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe there's a just reason that we don't know about. It's neither here nor there. What matters is the kids come first. I read this thing several times when I came in here. Several times. I'm sure you guys read it. I hope you don't walk past it every day. I highly doubt you do. I think you're all here because you care, because your parents made you that way or life did. It says right here, Chino Valley Unified School District provides all students a rigorous and relevant education and safe learning environment. I heard all the, I was in here, I'm supporting you guys 100%. This Ayala teacher, I'm going to be out there for him too. Because he gives that. That's the only thing that matters. 10 seconds left. I don't
Thank
care.
you.
Let's make that work.
Amy Desmet, followed by Deborah Woolery, followed by Annette Deming.
Good evening. I have spoke at the last 2 board meetings on behalf of my daughter's kindergarten teacher, who did not receive the support she needed to deal with the behavioral problems of a child in her class. During the closing comments of the meeting on February 6, 2020, Ms. Irene Hernandez-Blair questioned why the board had not heard anything regarding the issues with this child's behavior prior to January 2020 board meeting. While I cannot speak for other parents with children in that classroom, I personally waited until January because I was giving Mr. Bennett a chance to handle the situation following our conversation in December. In addition, January is when I first heard several teachers at Butterfield were requesting transfers due to a lack of support they were receiving from Mr. Bennett. Since my daughter's teacher seemed to be a prime example of this lack of support, I thought I should speak on her behalf. I'm a firm believer in following a chain of command and giving everyone a fair chance to do their job. I had contacted my children's teacher several times since the beginning of the school year regarding this child hitting and punching my daughter. This teacher had done her best to keep my daughter safe by separating her from this child in the classroom, and I had spoke to my daughter regarding how to behave around this child in an effort to avoid future incidents. However, in early December, this child hit my daughter, leaving a mark on her arm because he thought she was laughing at him. At this point, I knew more needed to be done to protect my child. I notified my daughter's teacher that I was going to speak to Mr. Bennett about this child's behavior. Her teacher forwarded my message to Mr. Bennett, and I received a call from him first thing the following morning. Although Mr. Bennett wasn't able to tell me anything due to confidentiality laws, he did say the school was working on the issue with the child and thanked me for reaching out to him. Several hours later, I spoke to my daughter's teacher, and she was unaware of my conversation with Mr. Bennett. I would think a parent's concerns regarding a student's behavior in the classroom and the safety of their child would be something a principal would immediately discuss with the teacher. Mr. Bennett spent a lot of time in this teacher's classroom, and Superintendent Enfield gave the impression he was familiar with this child's behavioral issues at the end of the January 2020 board meeting when James Knott asked him to look into the issue with this child, and he stated, "We're working on this with HR." If Mr. Enfield was aware of the behavioral issues with this child, why were the board members not informed? Is it the parents' job to inform the board of these situations? Or did someone at the districts fail to communicate these issues? Last weekend, the Champion newspaper published another article about Butterfield Ranch Elementary and the allegations against my daughter's teacher. Once again, it was mentioned state laws limit the actions that can be taken by a school district. While Subdivision K of Education Code 48900 prohibits the suspension of a child in kindergarten through third grade for disrupting school activities or willful defiance of teachers and administrators, I believe this child should have been classified under Subdivision A, which states, a pupil shall not be suspended from school or recommended for expulsion unless the superintendent or the principal of the school in which the pupil is enrolled determined that the pupil has committed an act as defined pursuant to any of the subdivisions A through R. A1, caused, attempted to cause, or threatened to cause physical injury to another person. A2, willfully used force or violence upon the person of another except in
Thank you.
self-defense.